Welcome to our event today. My name is David Armstrong. I'm the Director of the Health Workforce Technical Assistance Center. And today's event focuses on interprofessional simulation. Communication is key. And our meeting facilitator today is Penny Briese. Penny is an Associate Professor of Nursing and Simulation Lab Coordinator at the University of Jamestown in North Dakota. Everyone, welcome to our event today. Penny?
Hello, hello, hello. I see some familiar faces there. Hello, Dr. Eccles. Nice of you to join us. And welcome. Good morning, good afternoon, depending upon where you're joining us from. I want to very briefly run through my experiences with interprofessional simulation. Interprofessional simulation and communication is key. So, can you all see my beginning here now?
We can
yes?
see it.
Excellent. Okay. So as David said, I am an associate professor of nursing. My background is EMS and emergency room and long-term care nursing, as well as medical surgical nursing. So why is international or interprofessional simulation so important? Well, because it's one of the standards of INACSL, and INACSL is the International Nursing Association of Clinical Learning and Simulation. They have an entire booklet of best practices, and interprofessional simulation is very important to improve teamwork, communication, cooperation, to provide that continuity of patient care, and so that we as healthcare providers can understand each other and the disciplines that we work in. So to prepare for this, the first thing I had to do a needs assessment, and that's the beginning of any simulation. Those of you who are simulationists, you know this. What is missing? What is the gap? And my gap actually came from my experience being both in the long-term care and the ER and on the ambulance all at the same time. So I noticed that as I participated in those different roles, that a lot of times the communication was not clear, things were being forgotten, information was not being passed along, which then impacts patient care further down the road. So the first step was to partner with the other disciplines that were available to me in my area, and that it was Ringdahl EMS here in Jamestown. And I got together, his name was Logan Caldwell. He's a lawyer now, bless his heart, but he was our education director at the time at the ambulance service. And he and I sat down, put our heads together, and just really explored the resources that we had available to us between what he had with the ambulance and what I had at the university. He was just finishing up a class of paramedic students. So it was the perfect time to put them through their paces, so to speak. The next step was just to start writing, just free flow writing. What do we need? What do we want? What are the outcomes that we want? Over here on the right, this is my script. I have this with me for every simulation that I do. Thank you, UND Sim Truck, North Dakota. They graciously allowed me to utilize their format, and it's a very easy format to follow. Everything that I need to run a sim is on this, should the participants ask a question. I've got all the answers here. I've even got doctor's orders and the PRN orders, everything. We also then had to do a pilot test. And in order to do this, one of the big things we had to do was prepare the community. And this was our poster we made. Sadly, I didn't check with the music department, and we had some senior music recitals that were interrupted by our ambulance sirens. So that was just some feedback we got from the community, was to check with them first the next time we schedule and make sure there are no recitals going on. Then you get your group together, you recruit your participants, recruit your nurses, the nursing students that came to help me. And I'll show you the prep work in just a second here. And then we set up the site. So student prep, of course, you have to explain. We know this as simulationists. You have to give them the objectives of the simulation, very clear expectations. Don't try to trick them. Don't try to fool them. Let them know exactly what you want them to do. And then they can walk into it knowing, okay, I'm supposed to do X, Y, and Z. And we gave it to them both in verbal form, a written form, as well as the grading rubric. And I'll explain what the grading rubric was used for as we get further into this. So here's where we set up. This is the Denault's laboratory in at my university. It's a 6-bed facility that's set up like a hospital, but you can see we set it up as a long-term care or a nursing home bedroom. So you can see, if you're an EMS person, you can see all the wonderful things there are to move out of the way, or that you might trip over. You can't get your cot in there because of all these things that are in the way. So this was very good practice for those paramedic students to clear the path. Then this is my student nurse. She's doing a quick assessment, responding to patients' complaints of shortness of breath and just vague, not feeling well. He had a nebulizer scheduled, so she quickly gave him his neb, took his vitals, did the full thing. He still was not responding. He was not doing well. She made the decision to call 911. Now, this is something else that needs to be set up prior. It's a non-emergent statewide page for training purposes, and they actually called the tones, called the page, and the ambulance responded, lights and sirens. Oh, those paramedic students were in absolute heaven to get to drive the ambulance and turn the lights and sirens on. So they came and picked up my patient after conversing with the nurse at the bedside and getting all the information from her, getting his personal effects, his teeth, his glasses, his hearing aids, all of those things that sometimes get forgotten. And that impacts the patient. If they should be admitted, then they don't have those items with them. But this is just a brief video. I have what's called Beeline cloud recordings. So I have cameras and speakers in the ceiling. That allows me to facilitate from a control room. What we had to do for the EMS is the Logan put on a GoPro and he live streamed. So the rest of the paramedic class is sitting in a classroom watching. And here's the video. He says, "Oh, it's cold out here." And he's coughing. And they're talking to him and they're saying, you know, we're doing fine here. You're going to be okay, kind of things. They get him down at the end. He's worried he's going to get hit by a car. He says, "Please don't let me get hit by a car." He says it's cold because if you notice, it's April, it's chilly, and they didn't pull his blankets up and secure his blankets around him. They're being very careful, very good with him. And as they prepare to load him, oh, see, there he's got his bag of his personal effects. That medic has the glasses and the teeth and everything. He says, "Oh, don't drop me." So, and this is Logan interacting live through the mannequin. He has the tablet and he's able to operate the mannequin on the fly like that because it's a tetherless mannequin. So they drove around the university campus, lights and sirens going, while he codes in the back of the rig. So these paramedic students actually got to run a full ACLS code in the back of the ambulance. They absolutely loved it. Then here they are, they're back upstairs on the other side of my sim lab. I have the fortune to have two labs. This is my Barks lab. I have 4 to 6 bed capacity here. And you can see my senior nursing students met them at the back door, jumped on board, started compressions right away, rode all the way upstairs in the elevator, rode up and doing compressions the whole way. And then together with the paramedics ran a full code because, as we know in nursing, we're short-staffed, right? There were only 2 nurses available in the emergency room. And we know a code takes a lot more than 2. So the paramedic students got to participate. They hadn't gotten an IV started yet for this one. So they started an IV on him and they were pushing meds and defibrillated him and everything. And they were rewarded by ROS, the return of spontaneous circulation. So there he is in all his glory, Sim Man. And this whole scenario had to be reset because when this is all done, you have to debrief with these students. And we turned it into a really fun time. We used Plus Delta debriefing methodology. What did you do well? What do you think you would like to change? You know, and then we just ate pizza and laughed and talked about it. And then we changed groups. So some of the students who were watching then became the paramedic crew, and some of my nursing students that were watching became both the long-term care and the emergency room nurses. So, and you know as well as I do, the second round, since they got to watch it first, we learned just as much by watching. The second round, they did much better. They performed much better. But things were done wrong too. The second round broke his glasses. So those of us in EMS know now we get to buy that gentleman a new pair of glasses. And then they also left behind their 5 lead. So their cables here, that's going to be a problem the next time they need to utilize their defibrillator and their monitor. So so there were some lessons learned along the way as well. So really everyone has a role to play. I think that's what they all walked away with, that knowledge that everyone has their own particular input, their role to play in that delivery of healthcare. Clear, concise, and complete communication is key to continuity of care. I love that phrase. It's hard to say, but that's the bottom line. Be sure that if you're creating interprofessional simulations, that you're following best practices. Do that needs assessment. Make sure you identify your partner. What are your partner's needs as well? Make that plan. Prepare your community, prepare your students, prepare each other, and just, gosh, have fun. Interprofessional simulation can be so much fun. Wanted to do it every Saturday, and I said, oh my goodness gracious, I don't think I've got the energy to do it every Saturday, and I certainly don't have the personnel. I'm a department of one at my university. So but this was a lot of fun, and the plan is to redo it again now in the spring. So thank you. Do you have any questions? And I want to hear about your experiences with interprofessional education. I see we've got some things in the chat here: Minnesota, Connecticut, South Carolina, Washington. Someone must have asked where everyone is from. Wonderful.
I confessed I did that. It's a good icebreaker. And we actually
Sure
are
is.
fairly well represented here, at least from the different parts of the country. That said, you know, there's a number of people in the audience. Tell us about your experience. Have you facilitated interprofessional simulation before yourselves, or simulation in general?
Don't be shy. Go ahead and speak up.
Well, hi, this is Dr. Eccles from Minnesota. Hi, Dr. Briese.
Hello, Dr. Eccles.
Thank you for having this. I have not facilitated interprofessional simulation, but I can tell you just what you've been talking about seems so real life, having worked in the ER in my past, and you see that interplay between things and the broken glasses and stuff like that. So I'm sure it's giving those students just such a wealth of information about how things work once they're out there and making them more practice ready.
Yeah, it was very interesting to see the senior students as the emergency room nurses asking for things that were not asked back in the nursing home. Like, what medications is he on? They didn't bring a med list the first time. What was his blood pressure? They had no idea before they started taking blood pressure. So they didn't have that to really trend and understand the full implication of this cardiac event. So yeah, those little tidbits, those little things that are so important to bring from that home facility, that home base, through EMS and into the emergency room, it's vital information that needs to be passed along.
I do have a question. It's Bernadette in Connecticut. So with what you just had said, Dr. Briese, would you suggest that the IPE be initiated in the junior years, earlier years, instead of waiting in the senior year?
Absolutely. Absolutely. The sooner we get them into simulation, and we actually start in our sophomore here at UJ. They start as sophomores already. They get an intro to sim after they've done their first basic hygiene lab. So the scenario is very simple. It's just answering his questions, taking his vitals. He has to use the bathroom. Okay, now we're going to problem solve. Is he strong enough to get up and use the commode, or should we put a bedpan, or does he just need a urinal? So it's getting them already started with that critical thinking of the most basic, simple cares that are provided. And then they progress through the years. The simulations get more and more complex until we're running full-blown ACLS codes. The senior simulation, the final one that they do before they leave for their preceptorships, I hate to tell them, it doesn't matter what they do, he's going to code. It doesn't matter how good their patient care is, because the objective is to watch them perform cardiac code in a full ACLS team and figure out how to do it with only 3 or 4 people. Can you call other people? Sure, you can call additional people. Of course you can. So it's all about watching them grow and learn from each simulation. They all build one upon the other. So yes, as soon as you can, get them in that sim arena.
Thank you.
I have a question as well, Dr. Briese. I didn't hear how long this simulation runs.
With pre-briefing and the scenario and debriefing, each session took 2.5 hours. So best practices for debriefing is that it should be twice as long as the actual simulation experience. So we made it fun. We ordered pizza and we had a pizza party. We were sitting and eating lunch while we were debriefing. And those score sheets that I had briefly shown you, their classmates, their peers, it was actually the crew themselves did debriefing plus Delta, and then their peers got to comment on what they did right, what they felt they could do better, et cetera, et cetera. They had a chance to hear back from their peers who had watched the whole thing and were commenting and writing notes the whole time. And then we randomly picked a few more students from that group, the observing group, to run the second sim. And inevitably they did better. That is the best practice. If you can do sim, repeat sim, so pre-brief, simulation, debrief, repeat sim. If you can send that same crew back in and they can correct their mistakes on the spot, that is the optimum simulation experience. Unfortunately, because of time constraints, faculty constraints, simulation space constraints, we don't often have the opportunity to do it that way. So that's why we always try to build the subsequent sims to include the skills that they just learned. Oh, maybe I could do that different. Maybe I could, next time I do it, I'm going to do it this way. So they have the opportunity to practice. And we're going to do sims every week this year. We made the decision, the junior class is going to do simulation of some kind every week.
Dr. Briese, are you getting feedback from employers as they go out there on if they're seeing a difference in the graduates?
Well, I'll share with you probably my absolute favorite story. We had a new hire, young graduate, straight out of her NCLEX. The ink on her NCLEX license wasn't even dry yet. About 3 days into the job, had the opportunity to participate in a cardiac code. And her charge nurse froze. The charge nurse absolutely froze. And she looked at her for about 2 seconds and said, well, okay, here we go. And she led the charge, got them going, CPR, did compressions, get the crash cart, do this, do this, do this. She ran the code as a brand new graduate. And we got the nicest letter from the doctor who said, whatever you're doing, keep doing it. That was so impressive to watch a new graduate have that level of competence to run a cardiac code like that. And he thanked us. It's like, wow. So yes, they notice the difference in our students because of simulation. We always tease them, if the patient asks you, is this your first IV? You never say yes. You say, oh no, I've done this several times on a mannequin in the sim lab. You never add that last part. You just go forward with that confidence because you can do it. We know you can do it. We've watched you do it. We've signed you off. You're competent. And there are IV starts in every single simulation. So.
Hi, Dr. Briese. I'm Dr. DePriest from Washington State University. I have more of a logistical question. We do interprofessional education. We're very fortunate here to have medicine and pharmacy, and then our community college actually has some drug counselors that we've done some SBAR training with standardized patients. But I do love this piece because whenever we do any emergency response, it's really suspending reality when you just have nurses in the room doing something without the support of other folks. But we have sim capture as well in our simulation rooms. But how did you live stream the GoPro? We've got the GoPros as well that we use in exam rooms, recordings, and then we upload it later. But how did you live stream that on the paramedic or EMT's view?
Yes, that's a good question, because I was wondering how Logan was going to do this too. This was all his idea. So he had a headset, he had the bands, and he wore it on his head. And then he opened up his live stream channel. So that's what we tapped into down in the classroom. So I have Beeline as well. So I was live streaming from the classroom or from the sim lab down to the classroom. They saw everything that I saw. When I moved the cameras, they saw exactly what I was seeing in the control room. And then as soon as the ambulance came and picked him up, I ran downstairs and switched channels. So it went from Beeline to his live GoPro channel. And then he just took it from there. And then again, when they brought the patient back, I quick ran upstairs, got back in the control room, and my students, actually, I had trained my students how to flip it back to Beeline. So the students were facilitating the video down in the classroom.
Gotcha. Okay. I was like, I don't know how to do that on Sim Capture. So it was 2 platforms that you were using
Yep.
for that. Excellent.
Absolutely. And it worked beautifully. It was beautiful, beautiful, great recording of everything. So. And it's interesting that you mentioned having the standardized patients. About 3 years ago, we started doing interprofessional with physical therapy. So I worked with that. University of Jamestown has a doctor of physical therapy program. And my partner up there gave me just such wonderful scenarios that I never would have dreamed of, creating a simulation for. And with all the objectives, they're very simple. Get them up out of bed, even if they just dangle or stand, or if they feel like they can walk, let them walk, but don't tear any of the equipment off. So we used standardized patients. And the first round, it was me, which was very interesting. I got to be the patient with all the moulage. And then I thought, why am I doing this? I need to be in the control room facilitating this. So I recruited theater students. We have a wonderful theater program, and those students just knocked it out of the park. They absolutely loved it. So for 2 years, we used theater students. Last year, we invited the physical therapists from our local hospital to come and be the patients, because they gave an even more realistic a demonstration of what that patient is really experiencing and how they're going to behave and the things they're going to refuse to do, because they've had that experience as physical therapists themselves. They know what patients with an open, heart replacement or whatever, bypass, cabbages, they know they're not going to want to get up. Well, how are you going to convince them? Just even sit at the bedside for a minute and dangle, and we'll just watch you and see how you're doing. And it's very interesting. The students that come in are very, very competent. Boy, they know their stuff. They ask the right questions. They do a great assessment. They're very careful. I even put a jugular in just to freak them out. I put a dual lumen jugular, fake central line here, or peripheral in the jugular. And they look at that IV sticking out of the neck and their eyeballs get, as big as moons. But the thing they forget, my socks. They forget to put on the gripper socks, of all things. Isn't that just the most interesting thing? The simplest, most basic safety issue, patient fall, that's what they forget to do. They never forget again, that's for sure. But we really enjoy that. And we're actually running it again. And my cohort is actually writing his dissertation on the process of doing the interprofessional sim and the instruments to measure learning. So it's really snowballed into something big. Has anyone had any experience with remote starting your simulations, logging into Beeline and being able to start your cameras remotely? Are you able to do that, Don? You guys can do that? Because I want to try that. I'm very interested because of our weather here. We often have blizzards where I'm stuck, but the students are on campus. They can still get there. So I really want to work with that and see if I can get that up and running, that I can start it remotely from here, turn on my cameras and watch them in control cameras from my home. I've never tried that. I understand it's a possibility. You're saying yes?
Yes. Well, we did it as part of our training, but because we have the Beeline that's, the Sim Capture that they are now with Laerdal, that is cloud, you can do that from anywhere. So, and it's just attached. Each of our sim rooms are attached to that, and it's just a start button when you load into the main page there. And you can adjust the cameras and everything from it.
Oh, Sim Capture, I'm not worried about. Are you able to start the mannequins is my question.
Sorry, I misunderstood you. I don't think so, because you actually have to, we have all Laerdal products. You actually have to push it on the back, and we wouldn't want to leave it on overnight just because they get the battery pack gets a little bit overheated. So yeah, but you could always have directions for a student to do it.
See, that's what I'm thinking. I've got a lot of students that are very interested, and I've done some training with some of them. One of my honors students, actually her honors project was she wrote a natural disaster simulation, a flood scenario where the hospital got flooded. Okay, now everything is wet. You still got patients you have to care for, and a multitude of patients, including a premature birth, which was fantastic. Oh my gosh. And what we did is we flipped the classroom. Literally, the students were the patients, the nursing professors were the learners. And the professors came out of that simulation going, wow, was that stressful? I had no idea I put the students under that much stress. So what a great opportunity that is to flip it and let the instructors learn what it feels like. So. What kind of responses do you get from your learners, Dawn? Do they like it? Do they like sim for the most part?
We flipped a little bit in the past 2 years. Before, it was always this traumatic event would happen in simulation. So we're trying to get away from more of the doom and gloom. They're very stressed out, but they do enjoy it. They actually enjoy, before we used a lot of the mannequin-based simulation, and we've really made sure to thread in the standardized patients with and do more of a hybrid where, you know, they might have a pediatric patient that is the mannequin, you know, the Laerdal Sim Junior, but then we'll have the parent or the family member be a standardized patient. And then for OB, like we have a two-part OB Sim, and for the first part, it's the standardized patient in the bed, and then the second part, which is a little bit more hands-on skills, it's the mannequin. So they really like the standardized patients because they'll get up and go to the bathroom, or you know, when they do a finger stick, they'll wipe it on their pants, you know, or they have to interact, where with a mannequin it's a little bit more challenging, or it can be challenging.
That's very, very true. I know the PT students, really, the feedback from them is like, wow, that was so real. Thank you so much. And again, they want to come up every weekend. We typically do it on a Friday. My lab is kind of a little quieter on Fridays. So they come up on a Friday and run all day sim. And they want to do it every weekend. They're like, can we go with this? You know, I wish I could. I wish I had more people. That's what I wish. I wish there were more simulationists who were able to just be there and help me set things up. And I'm working. I'm going to give my faculty this fall now. I said, everybody has to know how to do this. Everybody has to know how to turn these mannequins on properly so that they run properly. So I'm actually going to develop an in-service training for the full faculty to understand the Laerdal turns on a little bit differently than the Gumard. Okay, so you just have to know which one you're going to be working with for that day, and just create a little book so that if they forget, they've got a quick guide. So I've got a little work to do yet this summer.
Dr. Briese, I've been wondering if you've had interest from any of the employers in the region about doing some in-services via simulation for their employees.
Absolutely, absolutely. And we had great interest from the sexual assault nurse examiners here in North Dakota. And we started with scheduling a one-day training, which turned into 2 days, which turned into 3 days. We had so many sexual assault nurses interested in doing this and training and recertifying and all of this in our sim lab. Sadly, we had to cancel for lack of qualified instructors. Does that sound familiar to all of you? So now we know where the gap is. We know now we need to get more instructors trained, and then we're going to try again. So in a way, it was good that we learned that, but I just feel terrible because I was so excited to set this up. We could have done 6 different bays. We could have had mannequins. We could have had live. They were talking about bringing in live standardized patients to do the exam, to do the speculum, to do everything. And I'm like, Wow, that's fantastic. We can do that. Shut all the cameras off. We have total privacy, no problem. Lack of qualified instructors really was sad. So yes, and I've offered also, right now we're running CNA classes over the summer. So the nursing home has a course running right now. We have another one that's going to follow on their heels, a second CNA class. And I've actually offered it to home health. I said, I know you guys have to do certification. Come on in. We'll set up mannequins. We'll do port care, pick care. We'll do whatever kind of things you need to do to certify these home health nurses to go out into the community and do what they have to do. So yes, I really see my sim lab is going to be expanding in the near future as far as capacity and capability of what we can do.
Are you doing that sort of as a bonus for people who are your clinical sites and such, or are you able to monetize that and maybe expand the simulation center or get staff that way?
Well, my ultimate goal is to become a certified sim center, to become accredited, and then to open it up to the large companies, to Gumard, to Laerdal, to all of these organizations to come in and do training, to do seminars, to do conferences, to utilize my lab, my space, to train more simulationists. That truly is my goal in life, is to get more people to see how cool sim really is and to get more people interested in doing it. It's a very specialized educational specialty. I don't know how else to say it. It's a very specialized education mode, and everybody can do sim. Look, anybody can run the mannequin. Anybody can turn it on and run it through its paces. Not everybody can do sim well, because that takes theory, and that takes time, and that takes training and education and specialization. So just keep that in mind. Your facility should have one certified simulationist who is able to direct the traffic, so to speak, and make sure that everybody is following policy, procedure, best practices, because you have to provide the same experience for all of your learners, right? Yeah.
You know, and I'm going to tag on that. I'm just going to totally agree with you. But the National Council of State Boards of Nursing has done quality indicators for nursing programs around the nation. And those are two quality indicators, is having a certified simulation educator and also a certified simulation lab. Show that those programs have higher quality programs, better NCLEX, first-time success rates, all that sort of stuff. So very evidence-based.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. And if you can send me any literature on that I can argue for a sim tech, please send it to me, because it is difficult to be a Department of One. I'm not going to lie, it's difficult. And it just is what it is. And again, with student help, I have work study students. They can set up the equipment, but I don't want them always to know exactly how the sim is going to unfold, because a lot of times it's them coming in to do it. So there still has to be that aha discovery of what is unfolding. You know, they need that experience as well. The work study students do. So. I'm going to kind of pick on Dawn again. How do you evaluate your learning? What kind of instruments and tools do you utilize?
That is a very interesting question that we're redoing right now. What we did is we had, it was more not really an evaluation except for the OSCEs for their assessment that they take in their first semester, or our nurse practitioners, we evaluate them for their OSCEs, and they have been using their clinical evaluation tools that they use to evaluate simulation. So it was more experiential. But what I would like to do is their readiness, do more of an evaluation and pull in some parts of the Cretan tool as well, but not all of it. So readiness and really kind of put that into place. So we're melding a couple tools together to see how to do that. And then on top of that, we've just redone our clinical evaluation tool to be standardized across all the semesters. So it's in the works, lots of exciting things, but how to really capture that feedback, because I think that's the biggest thing is are our learners ready after they come into simulation? And we're very lucky here in Washington State because the legislator was just passed and still working through the system systems, but we'll be able to have 1 hour of simulation count as 2 hours of clinical, which is just super wonderful, high quality simulation. We have to make sure we put that into there. So we're really fortunate.
Wow, that is amazing. Congratulations. And that's really you'd be amazed that 1 hour, how that's going to free up clinical time for more students in the actual facilities. So congratulations. Boy, that's something I'm going to have to work on and push here in North Dakota. See if we can't get something along those same lines, get some other simulationists on board, write a bill or something. But yeah, it's very important that you can document that learning, particularly for the accreditation process. You have to have 2 years worth of documented learning in order to apply for accreditation. So very important. Good for you guys. Yeah, I'm working hard on that. First thing was for me to finish my PhD. That was the first thing I had to do. That was the first step. Then I got my CHSE certification. Yeah, I'm pushing every button that I can push. And now it's to assess the learning and then apply for certification. So we're in that. We're headed in the right direction, and I encourage all of you to move towards that accreditation. It really does up the ante for your schools of nursing. It makes you much more marketable. It makes you much more. What's the word I'm looking for? You are the cream of the crop. Accredited certification. You're the cream of the crop. So. Anyone have any other questions? We've still got about 10 more minutes, I would say easily. I could certainly share more of my simulation stories with you because I've got a million of them. I think probably my favorite sim is, we call it Coma Guy, because he's a John Doe. And we only bring him out when we have that odd clinical group that has about 6. We don't like to have clinical sim groups that big. We like groups of 3, but sometimes for the sake, maybe we had a blizzard day or something, we've got to throw 2 groups together and see what they can do. We add Coma Guy. So the background of this is that he's a John Doe. He came in unconscious, needing ventilatory support. Nobody knows what happened to him. He has been beaten to smithereens. So my moulage is just bruises head to toe. I put in a moulage, a fake ET tube, and we've got a ventilator. And suddenly there's somebody who appears at the door, myself, who claims to be his girlfriend and can identify him. He has a very distinct tattoo. Yes, I tattooed my mannequin. I had an art student come over and draw a tattoo over a mark that looked like a bruise. It kept distracting my students, and I'm like, we got to get rid of that mark. So they drew this wonderful tattoo on him instead. So now he's readily identifiable. And so the girlfriend wants to see him. She can identify him. I know, here's his name, here's his birthday, blah, blah, blah. Are you going to let her in the room? There's the ethical dilemma. Do you let her in the room? Because police are involved, social services are involved. There's a lot of things going on here. If they do let her in the room, she gets hysterical and starts crying and starts saying, oh, he wouldn't want to live this way. And she's pulling things off him. She's trying to extubate him. She's pulled his IV out. She's just doing all these things. You should see their faces. They don't know what to do. They literally don't know what to do. They do get me out of the room eventually. And in debriefing, we have the conversation. So what do you guys think in a situation like that in the future? Are you going to let someone in the room just because they say that they're a family member or a relative? And the one student, I'll never forget it, he looked at me, he goes, I am never letting anybody in that room ever, ever. Because the backstory is she did it to him. She's the one who hurt him and shoved him out of the car and left him on the side of the road. So that is quite the learning experience for them. I wish we could do it more often, but other than that psychological outcome, it really doesn't have any outcome other than basic care of somebody who, skin care, oral care, there's no medication to give. There's a red mark to notice. It's just basic care of a unconscious patient. And but the psychological aspect of it, really, I tell you, they like that one. So I wish we did it more often.
I imagine. Didn't you mention, Penny, that you had like a theater background too, or something like that?
Yes.
Yeah, so-
I actually have 2 minor degrees that I earned while I got my nursing degree. I'm very fortunate. I'm ex-military. I had lived in Germany for 10 years, so ich kann ein bisschen Deutsch sprechen. So one of my minor degrees is in German studies, and my other minor degree is theater. I tell you, that theater background has come in handy so often between becoming these different characters. I mean, there's one situation where, because of lack of faculty, I was actually 3 of the 4 mannequins. I was doing voice over here with my headset here. I had a second headset on this side doing voiceover for another mannequin in another voice. And then I had a tabletop microphone that I was the voice over the ceiling speakers for a third mannequin. You want to talk about hard work, trying to be 3 different characters and answering questions in 3 different voices all at the same time. I don't ever want to do that again. This is what I'm saying. Have help. Bring in another professor. But it was, again, one of those snow days. The professor couldn't get there. Okay, well, the students are all here, so we're running this, however we have to run this, we're going to run this. But I don't recommend doing it that way. So yeah, and moulage especially, you know, that in and of itself is a specialty. Take courses, read books, go online, learn how to do really good moulage, because the visual part of it, I tell you what, we had one group that never pulled the blankets back, never looked at the feet, never took pedal pulses, never looked at anything. And it was the entire class. And I looked at the professor and I said, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go in now retroactively. I'm going to put a wound on that foot. And I want you to send a picture of that wound to the whole class and tell them you all missed this. You all missed this because you didn't, the simple thing, the most simple thing, pull that blanket back and look, use your eyeballs. Tell you what, everybody, the next sim, that whole cohort, those blankets came all the way down. We had good pedal pulses taken. So again, it's all about learning. It's not meant to be punitive. Anything you do in the sim lab is not meant to punish them for doing something wrong. The video recording is so valuable, being able for them to be able to catch themselves doing something wrong. They get that sick feeling. I actually wrote an article, if you're interested, Mesereau's Transformative Learning Theory. I use it every time I go into sim lab. That sick feeling they get in the pit of the stomach, that's the moment where the learning happens, because they never want to feel that again. So they will change their behaviors and do things differently in order to avoid that sick feeling. It's a very interesting little theory. I recommend reading it. So wonderful. Oh, I'm going to copy this law link. Thank you, Dawn. Let me open that. I'll read it later. So thank you. This is why I love chat, because we can share things like this in real time. So anyone else have any questions? Do you want some tips? Do you want some ideas? If you can't tell, I love simulation. I never ever saw myself being a teacher, and I certainly never saw myself being a simulationist, but here I am knocking it out of the park. I love it so much. And I'm always willing to share my ideas and tips. You can find me at UJ. Just Google me. I've got a very kind of a cheesy video out there of me giving a sim lab tour. So if you want to see my whole sim lab, just Google me. I'm on YouTube. How many professions does everyone work with for their sim labs? Like I said, we do PT at UJ. We do PT, and we do EMS. Those are our 2 big ones right now. But there's always going to be opportunity for more. I mean, I'd love to bring in the nursing home nurses. I'd love to bring in the emergency room nurses. I'd love to bring those two into my IPE and get their feedback on, is this really what you're seeing and experiencing? Absolutely, Nancy, you're very welcome. Like I said, I love sim. I don't see myself really doing anything else. In fact, I've told the students the only time you actually get to activate that defibrillator is if you find me down in the sim lab. Then you can and you can really plug in that defibrillator. Or no, go downstairs and get the real one from the lobby. Don't, you know. But yeah. And I've actually had 2 students that are most likely, cross your fingers, going to pursue simulation. So you lead by example and you feed that desire. You fulfill that within your students if you can, because we need more simulationists. We really do. It really is the future for all healthcare professions, honestly.
Yeah, role models are important. And you know, it occurred to me a little bit earlier too, and I mean, simulation just talked to you, it's really came a long ways just from a technology standpoint in the last 10 to 20 years. I mean, where do you see it being, say, 10 years from now? I think you kind of partially answered that already.
Oh my goodness, yeah. Like I said, when we were chatting a little bit before this all started, you know, simulation has been utilized since the time of the Civil War. They used to use mannequins stuffed with, I mean, burlap mannequins stuffed with straw and sand. And this is what they would practice their nursing skills on, these dolls. But it has grown, it has moved forward in leaps and bounds. I mean, I can hardly even keep up with. Now we've got mannequins that have realistic facial expressions, their eyes move, they smile, I mean, this is some really wild stuff that's happening. I think they're going to become even more realistic in the future, the robotic function of the mannequins. And virtual reality, do not poo-poo the value of virtual reality simulation, especially for some schools that don't have the space to set up a full hospital bed setting like I have. I'm very fortunate. We have, like I said, the 2 separate labs, plus I have a birthing suite. I have a room that is dedicated solely to the OB program that has the full Toco monitor, it's got the delivery bed, it's the breakaway bed, it's got the baby warmer, it's got absolutely everything in there to walk them through their paces in their OB courses. So I'm very fortunate. Not all schools have that. So if your school wants to engage in simulation, take a look into the virtual stuff, because there's a lot out there. There's a lot of even computer-based simulation that is available through, like, I want to say Nurse Tim has some stuff. And again, I don't work for them. I'm not promoting them. I'm just saying there's a lot of computer-based sim out there as well. So
Dr. Briese, have you seen AI coming into the fold with some of this now too?
Not particularly. I mean, the mannequin still needs the human factor. However, they've progressed to the point that you can program a scenario in, and I've done this because we do end of life sim. And so I program him to go through changes in respiratory rate, changes in pulse, and eventual cessation of heartbeat. And he just transitions through that over a period of time. And at a set point, he ceases to breathe and have a heartbeat. And they're freaked out by that. They're absolutely freaked out. Who's running the mannequin? Well, this is my husband, Bob. That's who it is. And I'm the widow at the bedside. Of course, I'm crying my eyes out at this point in time. Again, the acting comes into play. And so that's about as far as I've seen it go, is that I can pre-program the mannequins to do certain things and then step outside that control room. So, but yeah, I won't put it past, I really won't put it past becoming really interactive and changing on the fly based on what the students are asking without anybody running it. So. Let's see, Lucy, we support FNP, PMHP, IPE, military, active C. Military, we could certainly bring in our National Guard That's for sure. I've never even thought of that. PA students, organ transplant team, just did our first STAIN skills workshop. See, yeah, the sexual assault nurses, they need that arena. They need that setting to practice their skills and to recertify even. So yeah, next year, we're going to do this. We're going to get some more instructors. Even if we got to call them in from out of state, I said, call Minnesota, bring some of the Minnesota instructors over. I don't know the rules and regulations about if Minnesota can certify North Dakota. I don't know that. That's beyond my scope, but that's not my circus. I just have to set up the sim lab. So provide support for them there. So any other questions or information to share with one another? I think this has been great, just chatting with all of you and sharing my passion for sim.
Well, Penny, if I may say so, thank you very much. This
My
has been
pleasure.
all right. Goodbye, everyone. Hope to see you next time.